America's economic depression is accelerating. Dark days are ahead. The Fed's QE into infinity will precipitate the collapse of the dollar and subsequent depression. The Fed will debase the dollar and cause hyperinflation, and the ensuing calamity will be apocalyptic. It will be worse this time because we are headed to an inflationary depression rather than a deflationary one. At least until the last deflationary one, the average person may not have had much money, but what money he did have actually bought more stuff. In the coming inflationary one, the dollars you do have will buy less, so the average man's standard of living will go down even more. Critical events are happening so fast all around the world. As markets cool, political unrest heats up. It's all part of the Greatest Depression. When people lose everything and have nothing left to lose, they lose it, and the markets are losing it, too. The global slowdown will accelerate, and equity markets will decline, as companies brace for periods of growing economic uncertainty. To keep the cheap money flowing, this year, more than 30 central banks around the globe have lowered their interest rates, and dozens are expected to cut their rates again next quarter. Countries accumulated more debt than they can ever repay. Corporations accumulated more debt than they can ever repay. Consumer accumulated more debt than they can ever repay. This time around, we will not be able to bail out the corporations without bailing out all consumers. What happens to the money when you must print to keep humans from rising up and destroying the elites? What happens to the elites when the consumer figures out they were played for fools and the entire surveillance state was built in anticipation of the big collapse that's coming? The non-1% is very close to collectively waking up. It will make the Arab Spring look calm and peaceful. The monetary inflation, a derivative of QE and money printing, has been going on since the advent of fiat paper money, to sustain perpetual poverty, and force serfs to work to survive, thereby effectively giving the money printers the power to hold the advantage of bargaining, trade, and commerce. Which of course, results in low wages, price controls, monetary value control, legal oppression through bribing state and federal employees to write laws, and because they can print money infinitely, they can purchase, own, and control everything under the sun, globally. Basically, it's the quintrillionaires versus the millionaires, because the serfs don't have money. Global neo-serfdom in short. The difficulty now is that the measuring yardstick all these years was gold, and now its price is totally distorted out of reality. And even if gold is taken as a yardstick, its demand is not what it used to be. There is a whole generation that does not understand its utility, and therefore it does not want to buy or hold it. Add to this the infinite quantity of money generated out of every hole in the bankster's body, all those derivatives, and all. Since the manufacturing capacity of the countries have become incompatible and not comparable in any standard way, supply-side calculations are also distorted. The normal way out of a depression is either the 0.1% buys all the assets in the country, and take the people into serfdom, or the 99% demolishes the castle walls, introduces a new currency and resets the money market. We are opting for the first. I do believe the serfdom has been perpetual, the bankers sustain it, and the castle can no longer protect the local serfs because of growing immigration and street violence. The pretty and rather large corporate buildings will continue to become vacant, unused, and randomly ransacked by the serfs and foreign serfs till everyone begins to see the result of neo-feudalism as only ever more poverty for all. Obviously, the banks can't feasibly continue to bail out the zombie corporations, which add little or no value. The banksters didn't learn their lesson because the CDOs are being used now more than they were in 2008, and when that one pops, it'll be over. There won't be any bailouts for the banks this time around either, so they'll all go bankrupt. There won't be any need in the running on the banks either. When the currency is debased to the point of worthlessness, what's the point in doing a bank run? Those who ignore history are doomed to repeat it. People just can't seem to get that. One thing I've noticed in keeping up with not only how this is playing out in the US, but also in other developed countries, is that there seems to almost be a spell cast upon central bankers, money managers, and politicians, which is leading each and every one of them down the same path. It's almost like an orchestrated evil is at work, pulling the strings of these puppets, accomplishing its will. This does not end well is one thing I'm sure of. Prepare accordingly, if preparations of that magnitude are even possible. I wish everyone the best of luck because this is going to be catastrophic. This time it is going to be apocalyptic financially. Somehow we have thousands of more subprime loans, defaulting home, auto, and student loans now than were issued in 2008. It's going to be crazy. On the bankster side, to boost fees lost because of low interest rates, down about 20% this year, banks increased their lending to corporations eager to borrow cheap money. Thus, the $250 trillion global debt bubbles continue to swell. Be it monetary or fiscal stimulus. It's becoming increasingly clear that neither measure, although they might temporarily boost sagging economies, will not reverse the oncoming Greatest Depression. As economies continue to decline, social unrest will dramatically escalate, as evidenced in nations from South America to Africa, from Asia to the Middle East, and from Europe soon to the United States. And we have more market manipulation. Fiat is about to die for a very long time after this. This is going to be so big that I can't even wrap my head around the consequences yet. We are moving towards an economic Armageddon that will shake the world to its core. Silver, gold, and lead will be very useful in the coming years. Prepare accordingly. This market crash will destroy more people than the pandemic. As for the economy, the horse is out of the barn, and now the barn is on fire. Manufacturing and services have been cratering for months. 40% of lost jobs aren't expected to come back. Washington may spend as much as $8 trillion in stimulus. The Fed is printing money faster than the spread of the virus. And the rich is dancing. Our current financial system is in a state of chaos and cannot continue on its current path indefinitely, no matter how much the banking cartel would like to do so. There are too many classes of assets waiting to implode with just a slight uptick in interest rates. The system is broken and cannot and should not be fixed. Sure, it is fun to watch. The multi-trillion-dollar bailouts didn't go into the economy. It went into balance sheets. Zero effect except to enhance the party talk in the financial boardrooms. When the Fed expands its balance sheet, where does all this money come from? Last I heard, they're a private bank with no real revenue-generating service. At the rate they are going, we'll soon live to see tens of trillions of issuances. Kind of like a reactor core going critical, feeding upon itself. All this will result in mass deflation on luxury goods and inflation on essentials. 10 trillion on the sacred balance sheet as projected months ago. Is it magic? No, simply drop the ideology and look at the numbers, as this has been clear since kindly old Mr. Powell first stopped growing the balance sheet years ago, then reduced it while raising rates. Stopping the growth of the balance sheet about 2015 was error number 1, and this and further error in reducing the balance sheet and raising rates until last year were major errors number 2 and number 3. This caused the liquidity freeze last September when the balance sheet should have by last summer. Now the balance sheet should be 10 trillion as soon as it can be arranged. Powell strung out the credit markets until they began fraying and snapping because of his damned backward ideology. Then, the virus panicked the poor worthless governors and mayors. Now we are facing a grade A depression. Negative posted rates might be avoided, but the balance sheet has to go to 10 now and 16 to 20 by the end of 2021. Why? So much of the economy has been destroyed that, whatever it takes with no holdbacks or hand-wringing is the only glimmering slight possibility, and it has to happen before 330 million saps realize the politicians broke the world that they need to live in. Here is the analogy of what's really going on. You, me, and 4 other guys sit down to play a game of very high-stakes poker. How much are you bringing? $5 billion. $10 billion. How much are the others bringing? $800 million. $20 billion. It doesn't matter, because I am bringing all the money in the world, and then some, with my backer who has a money printing press. I am going to all in. Every time. And I won't even look at my cards. Now, who do you suppose wins that game? Every day and twice on Sunday. It was never supposed to be that way. Now you know why we are where we are. The Fed, covering for the power that be, will stop at nothing to keep the Potemkin village standing. Nothing. We're down to pure politics. They never miss an opportunity to rob the little guys while they stick the knife on your side. Their goal is a worldwide dictatorship of the banking cartel.